Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parvajikacharya Ashtotar Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivajikacharya Ashtotar Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 9th day of December 2024 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are on chapter 15, the Yoga of the Supreme Person, text number 20, on page 613. Iti guyatamam shastram idam uktam mayanagha etad buddha buddhiman syat kritakrityas cha bharata. Iti guyatamam shastram idamuktam mayanagha etad buddha buddhiman syat kritakrityasta bharata. Iti guyatamam shastram idamuktam mayanagha etad buddha buddhiman syat kritakrityasta bharata. Iti guhyatamam shastram idamuktam mayanagha etad buddha buddhiman syat kritakrityasta bharata. Iti guhyatamam shastram idamuktam mayanagha etad buddha buddhiman syat kritakrityasta bharata. Iti guhyatamam shastram idamuktam mayanagha etad buddha buddhiman syat kritakrityasta bharatam. Anyone online?
Iti guhyatamam shastram
Iti guhyatamam shastram
idamuktam mayanagha
idamuktam mayanagha
etad buddha buddhiman syat
etad buddha buddhiman syat
kritakrityascha bharata.
kritakrityasta bharata. Word by words. Iti, thus, guhyatamam, the most confidential, shastram, revealed scripture, idam, this, uktam, disclosed, maya, by me, anagha, O sinless one, etat, this, buddha, understanding, buddhiman, intelligent, syat, one becomes, kritakrityaha, the most perfect in his endeavors, cha, and bharata, O son of Bharat. Translation. Krishna says, this is the most confidential part of the Vedic scriptures, O sinless one, and it is disclosed now by me. Whoever understands this will become wise, and his endeavors will know perfection. Purport. The Lord clearly explains here that this is the substance of all the revealed scriptures, and one should understand this as it is given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus one will become intelligent and perfect in transcendental knowledge. In other words, by understanding this philosophy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and engaging in his transcendental service, everyone can become freed from all contaminations of the modes of material nature. Devotional service is a process of spiritual understanding. Wherever devotional service exists, the material contamination cannot coexist. Devotional service to the Lord and the Lord himself are one and the same, because they are spiritual. Devotional service takes place within the internal energy of the Supreme Lord. The Lord is said to be the sun, and ignorance is called darkness. Where the sun is present, there is no question of darkness. Therefore, whenever devotional service is present under the proper guidance of a bona fide spiritual master, there is no question of ignorance. Everyone must take to this consciousness of Krishna and engage in devotional service to become intelligent and purified. Unless one comes to this position of understanding Krishna and engages in devotional service, however intelligent he may be in the estimation of some common man, he is not perfectly intelligent. The word anagha, by which Arjuna is addressed, is significant. Anagha, O sinless one, means that unless one is free from all sinful reactions, it is very difficult to understand Krishna. One has to become free from all contamination, all sinful activities. Then he can understand. But devotional service is so pure and potent that once one is engaged in devotional service, he automatically comes to the stage of sinlessness. While one is performing devotional service in the association of pure devotees in full Krishna consciousness, there are certain things which require to be vanquished altogether. The most important thing one has to surmount is weakness of the heart. The first fall down is caused by the desire to lord it over material nature. Thus one gives up the transcendental loving service of the Supreme Lord. The second weakness of the heart is that one increases the propensity to lord it over material nature. That as one increases the propensity to lord it over material nature, he becomes attached to matter and the possession of matter. The problems of material existence are due to these weaknesses of the heart. In this chapter, the first 5 verses describe the process of freeing oneself from these weaknesses of heart. And the rest of the chapter, from the 6th verse to the end, discusses Purushottama Yoga, Yoga of the Supreme Person. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports to the 15th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita in the matter of Purushottam Yoga, the Yoga of the Supreme Person. So, here at the beginning of this verse, Krishna says, this is the most confidential part of Vedic scriptures. So I think we should read the previous verse. Whoever knows me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, without doubting, is the knower of everything. He therefore engages himself in full devotional service to me, O son of Bharata. Om jnana timurandasya jnanandjana shalakaya chakshurun militam mena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance to him and all members of Sri Parampara. So that verse that I just chanted is perfectly apt, isn't it? Krishna is saying here that one who understands him as the Supreme Person. This is the official title of this chapter is Purushottama Yoga. And you can see the previous verse, Janati Purushottamam. So let's review the chapter. It began with this very memorable analogy of the material world to an upside-down banyan tree. Prabhupada's famous phrase, the perverted reflection that this world. Hare Krishna, welcome. We're on page 613, now we're reviewing the chapter, page 591. So, what is this world, the perverted reflection? It means that there's a reality, there's a real world. If this is a reflection, then there must be a reality somewhere. So that's described at the beginning with this metaphor of a reverse banyan tree. Banyan tree, I haven't been to Balboa Park in some time, but we used to go there, and there was a huge banyan tree. There was a banyan tree, and it had grown to cover a huge area, and all of the branches coming down. Have you ever seen like that? They're roots, but they're like branches. So I always think of that tree when I hear a banyan tree. Or when I went to India, I remember going to Navadvip, and there was a big banyan tree that had grown around a house. And it was like, and they say, oh, this is where they perform a lot of Durga Puja. Somehow they worship that. But it's quite impressive. It's amazing. When a banyan tree grows for some time undisturbed, it can cover a lot of area. It's remarkable. So that's like this material world. There's unlimited entanglements in this material world. And they can be seen as the branches on this tree. First he makes the point of the reflection, and that's very graphic. Okay, we're standing on the bank of a very calm pool or lake, like a small lake, a pond, and there's a tree growing on the other side. May not be a banyan tree, any tree, and we see the reflection of the tree in the lake, and that's reflected tree is like this world. It's not the substance, it's the reflection of the substance of the spiritual world. Spiritual world is this one word in Sanskrit, sat, S-A-T. Has absolutely no relationship to what we call sat, which is past tense of sit. But it means eternal. It means that everything that's going on in that real world is beyond the grip of time. Famously, there's this wonderful verse at the end of the Brahma Samhita, which I always, it's actually 2 verses, but the numbering of the verses there in that Brahma Samhita is really far out, because oftentimes I'll have 2 verses, but it's got 1 number. So this is 2 verses with 1 number to it, right near the end of the book. And I'm not sure if it's Lord Brahma speaking or Lord Krishna speaking at that point, but because Krishna comes in at the end and gives some lessons to Brahma, But anyway, it's a wonderful 2-verse summary of the spiritual world, and it's very intriguing. It says, Shriya Kanta Padamaparusha Kalpatadavo Dhruma Bhumish Chindamanaganamahi Toyam Amritam Kata Ganam Natyam Gamanam Apivangshi Priyasaki Chidanandam Jyoti Padamapitadasvajimapicha. And then it goes on. Second half of the verse, that's only one half. Sayatra chirabdi sabadi sarvabhimjasti sumahan nimeshardakyoba vajati nahiyatrabi samayak bhaje shweta dvipam tamaham hagoloka mitiham vidantaste santha chitipitadachara katipaye. Which means, so it begins with Shriya Kanta, that the Krishna's beloveds, Kanta means beloved, you see, are all goddesses of fortune. Shriya is a word that means goddess of fortune, or goddesses of fortune. And the Kanta, singular is Padamapurusha, the Supreme Person. Here we are with Purushottama, same thing. And so that's the first thing. Like in the beginning of the Govinda prayers, you hear about the Chindamani Bhakata Sadmasu Kalpa Vriksha Lakshavatesi Sudabhida Vipaliyam Paldayampam Lakshmi Sahasrasata Sambrahma Sevyamanam Govindamadi Purusham Tamahamaji. So it describes that he's being worshipped by hundreds and thousands of Lakshmis or gopis. So then he describes the goddess of fortunes. There are many of them, and they're all the beloveds of Krishna. And then it says Padma Purusha Kalpatadavo, and the beloved of all of them is the Supreme Person, Krishna. And then Kalpatadavo Dhruma, all the trees are desire trees. So they're as conscious as everyone else there. And so that if you want to and you ask them, can I please have some mangoes? I say, sure. I said, a blossom with mangoes. Oh, I prefer pomegranates today, thank you. Oh, okay, pomegranates. So Prabhupada compared it to his some servant of his. If I ask them for milk, they'll give me milk. If they ask me for water, they'll give me water. Why? Because they're alive, because they're conscious beings, you see. Now, of course, the trees an ordinary tree is also rudimentarily conscious, but it can't understand, and it isn't capable of responding like that. So anyway, that's the magic of that world. So, Dhuma Bhumi, Shriya Kanda Padama Purusha Kalpatadavo Dhruma Bhumi's Chintamani. And all of the land is not just ordinary land, but it's Chintamani gems, you see. Chintamani Ganimahi Toyam Amritam, all the water is nectar. All of the walking is dancing, all of the talking is singing, you see. Kata Ganam, Natyam Gamanam, Apivangshi Priyasaki, and always one can hear the dear friend of Krishna, the flute playing in the distance. And then he said, Chidananda Jyoti, everything is effulgent there. There's no need of sun or moon. We read that in this chapter, right? There's a verse describing the spiritual world. So, Chidananda Jyoti Padamapitadas Vajamapicha. And you can taste it. Everything is glowing with that blissful effulgence. And everyone can experience everyone else's blissful effulgence. So it's all this very blissful world. So then the next verse is what I was getting at, the next half of the 2-verse verse. Sayatra Chirabdi Sravadi Justice Mahan. Sorry. Nimesharakyova Vajatinhiyatrami Samayag. So There's the Surabhi cows, and they're all so blissful. They're all emitting this milk all the time, and so it's a very milky. It's not. It looks muddy, but it's actually milk mud. You know, it's just everything's getting milk poured everywhere. Sumahan, a lot of milk. And then here's the point that I come to. Sayatra chirabdi srabdi surabib justice nimesharakyova vajininihiyatrapi samayak. In that world, not even a half a second passes away. It's always the eternal present. Nobody's getting old, you know, and everything like that. And there's some need for the pastimes to have like a moon seem to rise, you know, to create the mood. So there seems to be time passing, but really it's not passing. No one's getting old, nobody's changing, everything is the same. It's Sat, eternal. And that world is known as Shvetadvip. It's white, you know, island, and you know, that's Shweta. And it's known only to a very few pure souls who walk upon this earth. That's part of the verse. So that's all been revealed to us. That's just one verse, but you could read the 10th canto or so many books of the Goswamis, and you can find more details about that world, which is inviting us to come. This is the promise of bhakti. And even though, you know, we may be taking our baby steps in bhakti, you know, if we're committed, then we're assured of, in very short order, which means maybe a couple of lives compared to the 2 billion lives we led up till now, you know what I mean? So it's very encouraging. It's really the only hopeful thing in this world. Everything else is fool's gold. You know what fool's gold? It looks like it's valuable, but it's really not. And that's what all material consciousness is. And it's amazing because you can build whole philosophies and whole belief systems, you know, but ultimately they all just crumble at the time of death, and you know, who knows where you're going, you know. So we're introduced in a very short chapter. This is one of these 20-verse chapters. I think there's another one also. I think 16. The next chapter is also quite short, maybe a little longer. So let's just go through the chapter since it's so short. So the imperishable banyan tree that has its roots upward, its branches down, and whose leaves are the Vedic hymns. One who knows this tree is the knower of the Vedas. The branches of this tree extend downward and upward, nourished by the three modes of material nature. The twigs are the objects of the senses. This tree also has its roots going down, and these are bound to the fruit of actions of human society. So it's an extended metaphor, and he's describing what everything represents here. You know, how you can think of this world as really as a big entanglement. And we were trying to get free now with the help of, you know, Krishna and his representatives, and giving us knowledge of what our situation is and how we can escape from this trap we've been in since time immemorial. So, the real form of the tree cannot be perceived in this world. No one can understand where it ends, where it begins, where its foundation is. But with determination, one must cut down the strongly rooted tree with the weapon of detachment, which is asanga shastrena. Asanga shastrena. Shastra is a weapon, and asanga means lack of detachment. Detachment. Dridhena, with determination. Thereafter, one must seek that place from which, having gone, one never returns, and there surrender to that Supreme Personality of Godhead, from whom everything began, and from whom everything has extended since time immemorial. Now, this is interesting because in our efforts to practice Bhakti Yoga, in our present condition, we don't get the sense that we have to go anywhere. I mean, we want to go to the temple and, you know, associate with devotees, but we don't have to seek that place from which having gone one never returns. Well, we have to seek it out, but that remains a goal until we become perfect. But we seek it out because we first of all have faith that it exists, and then we want to do those things where we can perceive it more and more with a spiritual vision, with pure vision. And that's a theme here in this chapter and throughout the Gita. So we seek that place from which having gone one never returns, and there surrender to that Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now that place, you know, if we want to surrender, we can come to the temple and surrender. I mean, we can see the deity here, you see. So it's kind of a place in your head. It's you know, not a physical place. If you go to the place, you don't go there until you're already surrendered. But I think I understand what. But the point is that we must come to that frame of mind where we surrender to the Lord, and everything is extended. And once you do that, he says, those who are free from false prestige. Now this is the verse prescribing how to surrender. Those who are free from false prestige, illusion, and false association, who understand the eternal, who are done with material lust, who are freed from the dualities of happiness and distress, and who unbewildered know how to surrender unto the Supreme Person, attain to that eternal kingdom. So that's quite a prescription. That's a lot of sadhana bhakti has to go before we can meet the qualification of this verse. But it's very concise. Nirmana moha. What do we learn in the third verse of the Shikshastika? Trinada pisunichena Torah pisishan amani na amana dena. Right? Kirtanixadhari. So the first one is how humble we should be. What can be more humble than a blade of grass? It just lies there, getting ready to be trampled. Right? Can't really object, as humble as they can be. But it says you have to be more humble than that. Sunichena. Api means more. And then Toro Rapisahishana, what can be more tolerant than the tree? But you're enjoined to be more tolerant than that. That all means more, More humble than a blade of grass, more tolerant than a tree. And then, by those two qualities, then you're ready to offer all, honor to others and not expect any honor to yourself. What honor do I have? I'm just like a blade of grass. You can just trample on me, So to get in that mood of the opposite of egotism, it's always like rugged individual to fight for the top, No, that's exactly the opposite. That's the materialistic mood. Is really to feel how you can be of service. And this is, if you recall the Shikshastika, this is the verse, it's the formula of how you can attain taste for the name. Because Lord Chaitanya says, in the mood of, a conditioned soul, of course he's not, but Nam Nam Akardi Bahodana Jasarva Shaktis. You have unlimited names. Krishna, Govinda, and Keshava too. Your names have no end. And in each of them you have invested your potency, leaving none out. Whenever we want, we can chant them without the slightest restriction of time or of place. O Lord, who can fathom your infinite grace? Infinite grace. Yet I am so wretched, devoid of all shame, that I haven't developed a taste for your name. Now, if you read the Nectar of Devotion, you'll find there's one chapter that up till a few months ago was called Submission. And submission, how to submit to the Lord. No. It's a verse about this kind of a type of prayer or type of appeal called Vigyapti. If you look in the songbook, there's a Vigyapti. And what the Vigyapti is that there's different kinds of it. And one of it is that you take a role or the position of someone who is completely unqualified, and you're simply calling out to the Lord in desperation. You see, Dina Bandhu. He's Dina Bandhu. I'm the Dina, most wretched, unqualified, and Krishna's the friend. So please help me like that. That's what it's all about. So we had to do a little editing there to make that clear. It's no longer about submission. It's about submitting an appeal, right? If you submit a report, right? Then you can say that was submission, right? But what I did was submission, but it's not submission like bowing down. There was a confusion in it. So Lord Chaitanya is in that mood. He's teaching us how to pray. The holy name is so wonderful. Chaito Darpada Marjanam. He goes through all these qualities, 7 metaphors. I once wrote a whole article in BTG about this one verse. Chaito Darpada Marjanam, right? So the mind is like a mirror, right? And you're polishing the mind, Chaito mind. Bhava Mahadavag, and if you polish it, then it relieves you from the forest fire of the material life. And Shreya Kaidava Chandra, it's like the moonshine causing the night blooming lotus of good fortune to fill, and it expands the ocean of bliss. Everything is metaphorical. So, but in spite of all of that, wonderment about the holy name, still we don't have attraction. We're not spontaneously chanting. We're not crying when we chant Hare Krishna, because we're holding on to various parts of our conditioned personality. So he's teaching us in that second verse, realizing what a blessing, the holy name. There's no hard and fast rules. I'm so unqualified. I'm not, not this, not that, whatever I should be in Vedic culture, I'm not that. And yet, the holy name is available to me. There's no hard and fast rules. Time, place, or candidate. There's no rules. And it doesn't matter where you're from, what your age is, where you are. You know, there's a whole pastime where Lord Chaitanya, I think, was it's something that he's going to relieve himself or something. And there's this one child, I think, who instructed Lord Chaitanya, or suggested that, yes, you can even chant the holy name in the bathroom. You know, you can't chant anything else in the bathroom, but you can chant the holy name in the bathroom. No time and place. It's in this verse. Smodane Nakala. So the Lord is so merciful. He gives us unqualified souls a way to associate with Him and reach Him. He's reaching out to us, you see. And yet, I'm so wretched that I refuse to do what's necessary to really become attracted to chant seriously. So then the third verse, here's the remedy. Just feel yourself to be who you really are. Very wretched soul, you know, as humble as the blade of grass. And we have to be tolerant, because the world is going to come at us from all different directions, you know. You have to continue your sadhana and your faith in the Lord, even though bad things happen. There's a whole verse about that. Tatte nukampam susamikshmano bunjana evatnukatam vipakam rinbhagvapube vidatam namaste jivetiyo muktipade sadaya bhak. I don't know if you read the Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's a whole pastime around that verse. Because Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, you know, he was converted from Mayabad by Lord Chaitanya when he went to Jagannath Puri. And Lord Chaitanya came and chanted that verse. No, he chanted it, because what it says is, Tatte nukampam susamikshmana. One has to see everything that happens to him as the Lord's mercy. And even if there's something that's painful, you take that as the Lord's mercy. It could have been so much worse. You know, he just made me cut my finger. Okay, so I'll have to put a bandage on there and so forth. But I was supposed to cut the finger off, but he minimized the reaction, you see. So in other words, even when bad things happen to you, you see it as Krishna's blessing. What to speak of good things? Oh, Krishna's given me so much more opportunity to serve Him. He's giving me this money, or He's giving me this energy, whatever it is. How kind He is. And the bad things that happen, oh, must have did something so bad in my last life, but He's just minimizing the punishment. So in both cases, you're positive toward Krishna, you see. And then the last line says, I'll get it from the beginning. Bunjana eva atmakritam. I did it. I did something to make me suffer like this. But Krishna is minimizing and how kind He is. Bunja eva atmakritam. Ridvag vapurabir. Even though things may be difficult and painful, you're going through some trouble, you continue to worship Him with your heart, with your words, Ridvag, Vabhub here, and your body. Vidadan namaste, offering obeisances and so forth, continuing your service. And then what's the benefit of all this? Vidadan namaste, jive, the one who lives in this way, yo muktipade sadaya bhak. One who is muktipade means he's in a situation of being liberated. And dayabhak is a certain idiom in Sanskrit that means you become eligible to inherit. If you just stay in Krishna consciousness like this and maintain your positive relation with Krishna and you keep striving, then you'll inherit the kingdom of God. You'll be able to go there. So it's a very important feature. So, nirmana moha, free of false pride and bewilderment of false pride, nirmana. Jita sangha dosha, having conquered over all of the faults that have come from bad association. You see? Jita sangha dosha. This brings to mind, I have to share this with you though. There's this Sadhu Sangashtaka, which is Kapila Dev teaching his mother about the importance of associating with sadhus. So he paints the first picture, Prasangam Madaram Pashamatmana Kavayo Vidu. Those who are wise know that affection for, attraction for various things in this world is like a tight rope that keeps us bound. Prasangam means strong attraction. Prasangam Ajaram Pasham, very strong ropes. Atmana kavayo vidu. Those who are wise know that those very strong works of attraction have to be transferred from the things of this world and the people of this world, ordinary people, to the sadhus. And that opens wide the doors to liberation. Mundane affection or attraction keeps us tied to birth and death infernal. But love for sadhus opens wide the doors to life eternal. See? So that prasanga word, which means strong attraction or meaningful association, because sangha means association. Now it comes up again in this famous verse, satam prasangan mama virya samvidam. But first he has to describe, okay, I accept the instruction. Who is the sadhu? How do I find a sadhu? So he gives a description. Tatikshava, karunika, suridaksa, vadehinam, ajata shattabhak shanta, sadhavak sadhubhushana. First is tolerant. We're back to Trinada Pisunichena. Tador Abhi Sahishnu. Sahishnuna means the same thing as Tatikshava, tolerant. So, Tatikshava and Karuna means tolerant and merciful at the same time. So the preacher, he goes out, he tries to give people Krishna consciousness, and just like Nityananda and Haridas went out into Navadvip, they had a simple mantra. Bolo Krishna, Bodha Krishna, Koro Krishna Shika. You know that? You heard that? I put that in Rupam. You heard that? Just chant Shri Krishna's name and worship him with all your heart. Follow his instructions, and to others them impart. That last part is there, the Prabhupada added. That makes it all perfect. So, giving it to others, they're merciful. Haridas and Nityananda going out, but they have to be tolerant. There's Jai and Vijay, and they're throwing things. First they're throwing insults, they ran away, Then they came back, and Nityananda again asked him, "Did you chant Hare Krishna?" He throws a shard. A shard is a piece of broken pot. Boom, blood is coming. I don't mind. You should still chant. So he's going to throw another piece, and Jagai finally came to his senses and held his hand, which saved his life later. Because Lord Chaitanya was about to said, "No. Jagai, he saved me before." You know the story. So that's a personification of compassion, mercy, to try to save them, and tolerance when they don't want to be saved and it's so difficult. So that's the real sadhu. This is a devotee. Suridaksarva dehinam, best friend of all living entities, including the cows. Prabhupada makes the point, not just human beings. Ajata Shatava, and having no enemy. You're seeing everyone as brother and sister. They may see you as an enemy, but you don't see anyone as an enemy. Shanta, and because of all of this, you're very peaceful. Right? And these are the ornaments of a sadhu. So then he said, but it's interesting, that describes the sadhu, but there's no word of bhakti in there. That comes in the next verse. How do you get that way? Mayananyena bhavena bhaktim kurvantaye dvidham matkute tyaktakarmanas chakta svajana bandhava. So Kapila was speaking in the capacity of being an incarnation of Krishna, Vasudeva. So he says to his mother, Mayananyena bhavena bhaktim, with one-pointed devotion to me. This is how they became sadhus, is it? Bhaktim kurvantaye dvidham, engaging in bhakti with firm determination. And what's the proof? Matkote tyakta karmanas. For my sake, they'll give up any activity that's opposed to bhakti. Matkote tyakta karmanas. And even tyakta swajana bandhava, if your friends and relatives are impediments, they have to give them up also. That's an important thing. So he goes on and he says, so what do? Manashraya katam nishta shinvanti katayanti cha. They hear and chant, these sadhus, wonderful vibrations about me. Manashraya, the sound vibration that's taken shelter of Krishna. It's very nice. Manashraya katam nishta. Mishnam is very delightful. Shinvanti katayanti cha. And what's the result? Tapandi vivadastapa naitan man kata chaitasa. Because their mind is so fixed on me, they don't even practically be conscious of the miseries of this body. In other words, Prabhupada in his lecture, he gives this immortal example. I can never forget this. Who does he give as an example? A mundane example of this. You ready for this? Joseph Stalin. What? Big demon, But the example is that at one point he had to have an operation on his stomach, So the doctor came and was ready to, give him chloroform at that point. So he put him under so he could, anesthetic. He said, no, that's okay. because he was so paranoid. They said his enemies would come in the room and just to kill him, you know. That's all right. I'll be awake, you know. I'll be. So he was so, you know, determined, you know, that even though it was hurt, he was able to tolerate. So he gives this example. But if you're meditating on Krishna, you can actually, to the point where you don't even feel it, like Prahlad Maharaj and Haridas Thakur. You know, Haridas was beaten in Prahlad, you know, the story. So that's there. Their mind has come to me and they're off the pain. So then he says, and this is what, bring this up, this is why I wrote it. He says, Tahite sadhavaksadvi, sarva sangha vivarjita. I forget the third line, but the fourth line is that you will be able to get free of all sangha dosha, all of the faults that have accrued to you because of bad association in the past. You see, if you associate with the sadhus, then you'll find yourself getting free of that. And here, that's an important part of surrendering. This is all about how to surrender. Nirmana moha, be free of the delusion of false pride, and having conquered all of the faults you've accrued from bad association. Adhyatma nitya, being, how does he say? Those who are free of false prestige, illusion, and false association, and faults that come from bad association, who understand the eternal, who are done with material lust, who are freed from the dualities of happiness and distress, and who, unbewildered, know how to surrender to the Supreme Person, attain to that eternal kingdom. So that surrender comes when you can fulfill these qualifications. And then there's this one little verse describing the spiritual world. The supreme abode of mind is not illumined by the sun or moon, nor by fire or electricity. Those who reach it never return to this material world. So there's two basic things. It's self-illuminating, and that's there in the, of course, in the Brahma Samhita. Yasya prabha prabhavato jagadandakoti. The spiritual world is self-illuminated. Krishna is there, and he's illuminating everything. So those who go there never return. This comes up several times in the Bhagavad Gita. Those who go don't come back. And then, very important verse, Mama Vangsha Jiva Loki, the living entities in this conditioned world are my eternal fragmental parts. And what Prabhupada and he explained is, are eternally my fragmental parts. In other words, it's not that we eternally my fragment, is that we become God, or that we're always eternally in this, Krishna's parts and parcels, even in the spiritual world. So God is God, and we're his anksha. Anksha is a part. Due to conditioned life, they are struggling very hard with the six senses, which include the mind. So this is our description of our present situation. The living entity in the material world. Now here's this little summary of transmigration. The living entity in the material world carries his different conceptions of life from one body to another, as the air carries aromas. Thus he takes one kind of body and again quits it to take another. So he carries it. How does he carry it? In the mind and the intelligence and the ego, which goes with the soul. They don't die, this subtle body, that we all have. We all have a mind, intelligence, and ego. So that's all stored there. And that's the template for our next body. So the living entity, thus taking another gross body, obtains a certain type of ear, eye, tongue, nose, and sense of touch, which are grouped about the mind. He thus enjoys a particular set of sense objects. That's assuming you get a kind of animal body or an insect body. You could also get a tree body, and you won't have a sense of touch. But anyway, it's pretty clear. The foolish cannot understand how a living entity can quit his body, nor can they understand what sort of body he enjoys under the spell of the modes of nature. But one whose eyes are trained in knowledge can see all this. The endeavoring transcendentalists, who are situated in self-realization, can see all this clearly, but those whose minds are not developed and who are not situated in self-realization cannot see what has taken place, though they may try. So this theme comes up again and again in the Gita, as how to purify one's vision so you can actually see reality. Is that your ability to see is conditioned by the knowledge you have I always give the example of these paintings. Someone walks in here for the first time, they have no idea what these paintings are about. But after a time, you see with knowledge, and they can inspire you. And Prabhupada would look at them, he immediately thought, oh, these are like windows to the spiritual world. You know, he's actually seeing the pastime. So it all depends on the knowledge that you're seeing with the splendor of the sun. So now Krishna is saying, as he has in other places, that he manifests himself in various ways through the material world. The splendor of the sun, which dissipates the darkness of this whole world, comes from me, and the splendor of the moon and the splendor of fire are also from me. I enter into each planet, and by my energy they stay in orbit. I become the moon, and thereby supply the juice of life to all vegetables. I am the fire of digestion in the bodies of all living entities, and I join with the air of life outgoing and incoming to digest the 4 kinds of foodstuff. So when can you really forget Krishna? If you can remember these verses, the sun, we had the sun already in the 7th chapter, right? So this is one of the many places, 9th chapter, 10th chapter. Krishna is always saying, look, whatever you see, whatever you're smelling, whatever you're tasting, I am that. This is my material energy, and you're also my energy. So if we can remember these things, then how could we not be Krishna conscious? I am seated, and this is a key verse, 15:15. I am seated in everyone's heart, and from me come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. By all the Vedas I am to be known. Indeed, I am the compiler of the Vedanta, and I am the knower of the Vedas. There are 2 classes of beings, the fallible and the infallible, meaning those who can fall and those who can't fall. The fallible and the infallible. In the material world, every living entity is fallible. We've fallen from the spiritual world. And in the spiritual world, every living entity is called infallible, because having gone there, you once never come back again. Of course, Krishna is infallible. That's why he's known. What's the name of Krishna? Achyuta. Achyuta. Yes, and we are definitely Chuta. Besides these 2, there is the greatest living personality, the Supreme Soul, the imperishable Lord himself, who has entered the 3 worlds and is maintaining them. Now I always get I don't want to say a kick, but a little frisson of interest when Krishna goes into the 3rd person. Have you noticed that? He is the 3rd person, and he just said so, right? 2 verses back, Purushottam. But now he's speaking in the 3rd person as the Guru. Because I am transcendental, well, there he is. Now I am that person. Because I am transcendental beyond both the fallible and the infallible, and because I am the greatest, I am celebrated both in the world and in the Vedas as that Supreme Person. And finally, today's verse, whoever knows me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead without doubting is the knower of everything. He therefore engages himself in full devotional service to me, O son of Bharat. This is the most confidential part of the Vedic scriptures, O sinless one, and it is disclosed now by me. Whoever understands this will become wise, and his endeavors will know perfection. So I kind of, the whole movement is based on these like syllogisms, I mean, here's it. Krishna is God, and Lord Chaitanya is Krishna. And you think about it, everything expands from there. Krishna is God. Well, what does that mean? Then you read the Bhagavad Gita, all that it means. He's the indwelling soul. He's providing everything as a source, So that's the 15th chapter. Very key chapter. A few of the most famous verses. Mamai Vangsa Jiva Loka Jiva Bhuta Sanatana. All the living entities are my parts and parcels. Jiva Loka, and they are eternally so. Mamai Vangsa Jiva Loka Jiva Bhuta Sanatana Monakshashtan Indriyani, and they are in this world struggling with the 6 senses, which include the mind. So, although we're divine, we're minute, and we're covered by the material energy. But still, we're indestructible and part and parcel of Krishna. Okay, any comments or questions on this chapter? Very important chapter, and tomorrow we're going to launch, if you're ready for it, Divine and Demoniac. All right. Nelson has a question.
When we go back to the spiritual world, and we're in our Swarup,
yes,
do we remember any of our previous lives, anything from our so-called past?
Well, Prabhupada gave this because he knew some of the mottos, from studying the English, once burned, twice shy. So I don't think it's be like we can take a review of like maybe the first 1,000 births we had, you know, it's going to, no, it's not like that. You don't want to do that, you know. But you remember enough of it to remember that you don't want to do it again. No way, you know. I made that mistake once. I'm going to stay here, you know. The Prabhupada even says, I swear, I remember this is very distinct, that Krishna, as we were getting ready to come down here, you know, he's trying to convince us not to come. And we, you know, very stubbornly refused. We could back, no, you know, I'm going to be God. I'm going to try to be God. So having experienced, you know, these all countless births, as I don't even want to think some of these lower births, what we did, we're pretty sure we don't want to try it again. You know, we've got a bad deal, right? So that's the idea.
So we do have...
There's some memory, but you know, it's not like you're going to dwell on it or it's going to impinge on your consciousness. It's just, you know, God, I'm glad I'm back. I got out of that, you know. I mean, I'll tell you, even in this life, you know, I've been doing this for a long time, and sometimes I was reviewing some of the close calls I had, you know, because you live in this material world and it's just dangerous things that I had. I remember one time, I had driven Sariputta upstate because he was going to go get his degree. You know, Sariputta is a famous figure. You know who he is. You heard Sariputta. Sariputta was one of the most brilliant devotees who joined the movement. He was an incredible mathematician, and he was part of the BBI, the Bhaktivedanta Institute, and he wrote a book called Mechanistic and Non-Mechanistic Science, and he wrote a paper because his specialty was information theory, which is a division of mathematics, how much information is a certain environment and how it got that way and everything. And he proved, you know, in a way, have you ever seen one of those proofs, in long mathematical proofs? You can't really understand it unless you really know that, you know. But he proved that there's too much information. There's too much information in this world for it to have come about by chance. There had to be a conscious being behind it, you know. So that was his. So anyway, at a certain point, he needed to go back and study for a few months and to get his degree from some university, I think Rochester or something like that. That's upstate New York. So I was driving him in a van. And I was on the way back, and I was getting on a highway, and suddenly the guy in front of me slowed up, you know, a lot. And so I was able to put the brakes on, and I didn't hit him. But then I realized after I slowed up and I didn't hit him, then he sped up. And I realized he was trying to stop so I would crash him and he would get the insurance. You know, that's a thing that he did. So, wow, that was, you know, I lucked out on that. And there were several other things, I won't get into detail, where this before I joined, where I had a close call, and if one went one way, I would have, you know, would have been disastrous. I could have got killed or whatever like that. And I saw how I was just thankful Krishna saved me in each instance, you know, and I went through some difficulties. But the result was that I joined the movement in '73 in Brooklyn. And it's just been, time just, you know, it's been like, that was like 51 years ago. But the time changes when you're in Krishna. And it's, anyway, the years are going by. But I was so thankful that, yeah, I can see there was an intervention there. I mean, there was no, it was a long shot that I survived that in encounter and so forth. But anyway, it's, you know, and so much of the Gita, you see, is trying to teach you how you can see Krishna in your own life, in your life, you know, practical. Vasoham Amsakanteya, I'm the light of the sun and the moon. Now, in here he says, I am the sun, I am the moon, not the light of the sun and the moon. But it's the same idea, is that learn how to see Krishna at every moment. And the only way to do that is to completely stop trying to exploit Krishna's nature for our own pleasure. That's where Maya comes in, that it helps us forget. Because you can't really, if you're thinking you're enjoying someone else's property, you can't really do it freely, you know. So to improve our ability to enjoy this false pleasure of sense gratification, we have to forget that it all belongs to somebody else, and that really digging our own grave, and, you know, no. I'm the enjoyer, you know. And of course it all comes crashing down. So knowing that now, you know, we can be very thankful. Samsara dhavanara loka tranaya, the first words of that famous prayer that the spiritual master is pouring down this like a cloud pouring down of mercy and saving us, extinguishing the fire of samsara, for us. So, we didn't have one poem, we just had just a real quick one. Bhujanga de Prachandakas Buddha Kanda Chudankare Naranka Shadraganchada Brahmanda Badda Bringam Brahme Patanga de Hutustati Banakuti de Keli Priye Padaspudatume Mohus Fai Mukunda Shuddharati. You wear the best of crests, a crown of perfect peacock plumes. Your dancing glances stun the bees meandering midst the blooms. You relish love play in a cottage by Kalindi's shore. O Krishna, may pure love for you be mine forevermore. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.